right, now that you know how to keep a Air Force jetliner from crashing a huge cargo plane, let's look at some other things. That was just number one. All right, so number two, right? The leader should be impartial. Don't state your preferences. I know when we talk about, I don't know, sometimes we talk about politics in the classroom. The students will ask me, hey, professor, who do you like, right? You Republican, you Democrat, who do you like, who do you don't like? And I try very hard not to let them know. Otherwise, the ones who some people feel satisfied because, hey, I must have the right answer, so what the professor says. The other people don't feel like they're comfortable talking because, I am the person who hands out grades, so they don't want to irritate me by having different political views. So it's much better if the leader doesn't state their preferences. You let the group shake out the answer the group wants to come up with. Number three, I've talked about before, assign a devil's advocate role to at least one group member, and the devil's advocate is not to disagree. The devil's advocate role is to challenge. How do you know that? Right? How do you know the answer? So for instance, when the kid says, when the pilots say, hey, we're going to 19,000 feet, somebody should say, how do you know that? Well, that's in our flight plan. Really? Can you look it up and show me? Yeah. Oh my God, it says 15,000 feet. Right? That's what these pilots did, right? He called back to the base and had them double check, and they found out they were in fact mistaken and almost killed everybody. So the devil's advocate role is, I talked about the stock club I belong to, and everybody'd come with a hot stock pick, and the devil's advocate would say, how do you know that? How do you know they're going to make more money? What makes you think their stock price is going to go up? Not that you're wrong, it's just that you need to prove it. The same thing they do in court. Somebody brings in evidence and says, hey, here we have the person's fingerprint on this knife, right? Well, how do you know that's the knife that killed the person? Because of this and this and this. How do you know it's their fingerprint? Because this and this and this. How do you know the fingerprint didn't get on there by accident? And then they have to explain all that. They have to keep the evidence locked up. There's a chain of custody with evidence, so it doesn't go anywhere. All that, right? So because all this is available to be a challenge to make sure no one sets the person up. Right? So that's how they protect your civil rights, which is perfectly fine. So you think of your defense attorney as the devil's advocate. They challenge everything they did. So I was taking a class when I got my MBA from a lawyer, and somebody asked him, did you ever defend anybody you knew was guilty? And he said, well, yeah, probably have. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I have. And he said, well, what was he doing? Well, the guy was accused of robbing a bank. I said, okay, that sounds pretty serious. And so his job as the lawyer, defense lawyer, is not to get the guy off. His job is to give him a fair and proper defense. So the state, right, the prosecutor says, we have a photo of the guy holding a shotgun, demanding money from the bank teller. Well, okay, do you have the photo? Is it from the bank? And is that the guy in the photo? The answer is, or the answer apparently to the satisfaction of the jury was yes, yes, and yes. Therefore, the guy's guilty of armed bank robbery. Nobody's going to see him for a while. He's gone to jail. He's gone to the big house, right? Okay, fine. So he was the devil's advocate. His job was to defend the guy's civil rights, to test the evidence against him. So he did test the evidence against him and found out it was pretty darn good evidence, all right? So the guy went to jail. But that's what a devil's advocate does. All right, number four, use outside experts to challenge the group. So the group has decided this, and to make sure we didn't have some political thing going on, some group thing going on, let's let some outside experts look at it and challenge it. If we can convince them, it's probably a good decision. If we can't, maybe not so much. And certainly you need to be open to dissenting points of view. When someone disagrees, you really need to ask why. What do you mean? You give them a chance to have their statement. That's a good thing when people disagree. When no one disagrees, that's the time to be concerned. It was either obvious as could be what the right choice is, and then you got to wonder why we're here to begin with. Why wasn't it just an easy choice? Or did we fall prey to things like groupthink? All right, B, organizational prescriptions. What can we do with our organization to limit the chance of this happening? So we can set up independent groups to study the same issue. So one group's over here, one group's over here. It works the way NASA does this. NASA likes to do this when they do very complicated things like design a rover to go to Mars. They'll come up with, they have competing teams, and they try very hard not to have the teams know about each other, because if they know about each other, they'll do their little spy thing. There'll be emails, there'll be phone calls, there'll be middle people running back and forth like it was middle school, the he said, she said, trying to piece together what's going on, because they don't want the other group to do something they didn't think of and look bad. So these two groups will make lots of attempts to contact each other, which is exactly the opposite of what you want if you're the organization. You want them to be independent so they come up with independent solutions, so you can pick the best one. And if they both come up with the same thing, that adds a lot of confidence to this is the best way to do it. Right? And you certainly have to train managers and group leaders about groupthink and these types of prevention things, the things we just talked about in section A of this. The individuals need to be sure they're critical thinkers. How do I know that? Oh, somebody presented data? Where'd that come from? You got a citation? Can I look that up? Right? That's perfectly okay to ask when somebody starts throwing data around and all that. Sometimes people put a little spin on things. Sometimes people, kind of make up their own numbers to support their thing. Sometimes the graphs aren't quite accurate. There's accidental errors to make their position look better. There's an old joke for graduate students doing research that said 80% of the statistics quoted are made up on the spot, and that's a joke because who knows? Right? I just made up the 80%, right? You can throw any number in there you want, and that's the joke between grad students. Yes, that's what passes for humor with grad students. Okay, where are we? C, number 2, discuss group deliberations with a trusted outsider. Again, go talk to other people outside the group who aren't in this political mess. They're not in this soup of what might we do, and they can help you sort it out. Process prescriptions, what can we do with the process? Periodically break up the group into subgroups so you have these, so the politics that are infecting the whole group might not infect all the different subgroups the same way. So maybe one group can help support each other with their doubts and then raise the flag and say, we got a problem with this. We don't think this might not be okay. Let's go back and look at this. You should take time to study things on the outside. Basically, the more time you take, the better, although that's not always a choice, particularly when you're trying to launch a space shuttle, that day. And then number 3, hold second chance meetings to rethink the issue. So sometimes I call it sleeping on it, right? So we're going to make a decision, and then we're going to get back together in 2 days to talk about something else. But before we do that, we're going to revisit this decision we just made. And are we still okay with this? Did anything come up? Does anybody have any lagging doubts they thought of in the meantime that we should reinvestigate? That's not a bad way to go. And if it survives that, I always feel like we probably made a pretty good call, pretty good decision. We certainly should look at how much participation goes on in decision making. The more participation we can get, and there's lots of benefits from participation, right? We get lots of different people from different backgrounds helping with problem solving. We've already talked about how that helps. Solutions, and people have shown that we get more and better solutions if we have lots of group participation. And it certainly helps solve complex problems with lots of people doing lots of good inputs into decision making, and it creates a greater interest in the task. So if I get to help decide something, I have some skin in the game. I'm much more liable to be highly motivated and to make sure the implementation is a success. So when I was in a managerial training class many years ago, we played this game called, it's like Oregon Trail. It's this game where we were crashed in an airplane in the desert. And they have this list of, I don't remember, it was 15 things, and you have to list them by order of priority of what you should grab first from the plane. There's the danger the plane is going to burst into fire. So what should you take out of the plane, and what priority level should you do it? So you're crashed in the desert, no one knows where you are, and it's the desert, right? I mean, you're out there, there's no water around, there's nothing like that, right? So what should you pick? So in this simulation, first we did it, everybody did their individual pick, and then later people did a group pick, or the group side. So everybody makes their own priority list, and I make mine. I'm thinking, hey, I was a Boy Scout, I did a lot of camping, I should be pretty good at this, right? And then they put us together in teams of, I believe it was 4 or 5, probably 5 people on a team, and then the team has to set their priorities, right? And I'm thinking, I'm sure I'm going to be better in my team, because we got people on my team, they're not very outdoorsy, they're not backpackers, they're not campers, what are they going to know? So the group comes to some decisions on priorities, and it's different than my list. And yeah, I've okayed this, but I'm not feeling all that great about it. And I'm pretty sure that I have a better list than the group had. But you got to kind of bend to the group a little bit at some point, was my thought. So then they give us the correct answer, right? The answer that comes from the survivalist. This is what you do. By the way, always pick the signal mirror, right? Water and signal mirror, right? So you can call for help, because that's what's going to save you, is to be rescued. So ways to get rescued are extremely important. So water to keep you alive, signal mirror and matches, right, to make smoke and to signal things. Anyway, as we add up the points, turns out the group did better than I did in their suggestions on what to pick as a priority to take out of the airplane. And in this classroom of people, there's probably 30 people, so there's probably six teams of 5. Every group did better than every individual except for one guy. And the guy teaching the class said he's surprised almost always every group does better than every individual. It's very difficult for the individual to beat the group in terms of group decision making. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is groups make better decisions than individuals. So when you have complex decisions with lots of choices, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes teamwork, but you'll come up with a better answer. So if it's worth the effort, if it's worth the cost put into decision making, that's the way to go. And the thought is that's what you should try to do. So things that limit these generating of solutions, real quickly to finish this up, right? Immediate reactions to alternative discourage further proposals. So here we come up with the idea of gosh, it escapes my mind. Where you throw up lots of ideas on the board. Brainstorming, sorry. Yes, brainstorming. So we throw up brainstorming up, and the idea is to generate lots of alternatives but no comments, no reaction to the alternatives. And that way, if we spend our energy and time shooting down people's ideas, the new ideas come much slower and they stop coming because people see ideas getting shot down. So as we generate alternatives, some of those alternatives, people see alternative A, they see alternative B, they put it together and come up with alternative E. So it just sort of feeds on itself. And that's a good thing. And then often we come up with very creative solutions we didn't have before, and then we go through and analyze them and group them and activities like that. And it turns out that we come up with ideas we never would have gotten before. But you need a leader, and you need people on the team who are committed to limit the reactions or give no feedback to the ideas. Write them down on Post-its, stick them up on the wall. That's what you need to do. No reaction is, oh, that won't work because somebody's immediately going to yell. You go, that's not what we're doing. No feedback, just throw the ideas up. And as ideas keep coming, right, you only need one idea out of all those, right, to make it worthwhile. So I like the whole idea. Brainstorming, I think it's useful. And when I'm in a group that gets stuck, right, that's our fallback position. That's the one we go to.